Okay. If it's okay, I'll go ahead and start.
Yes, go on. How to you?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we can see your screen.
Yeah, this is the last session's just key takeaway very quickly. I'll just go through that. So, what is the purpose of our bodies? The body is sacramental. That means that it is a visible sign of an invisible spiritual reality. That means I'm not saying that body is a sacrament. What I'm saying is it is a sacramental. That is, it is able to show something which is invisible, which is God's grace. Okay. And then the reference is from John chapter 14, verse 9. Then Jesus says to Philip, have I been with you so long and you still do not know me, Philip? Whoever has seen me has seen the Father. Here, Jesus is, in a sense, becoming sacramental. He's showing us the Father. So, how can you say, show us the Father? So, this is a very, very crucial line from the Theology of the Body. Lecture number 23 and paragraph 4. It says, through the fact that the Word of God became flesh, the body entered theology. I would say through the main door. So here, this is an absolutely essential thing for us to remember. If you can just think about the fact that God has now become a human being. That means God, who's the creator of the entire universe, which includes the earth, the sun, the moon, the stars, and then on the earth you have all the living creatures, of which the main and the most primary is the human person. And God himself is now emptying himself of all, is like what it says in the book of Philippians. He emptied himself, took on the form of a servant and became man. He is now come among us. He is Emmanuel, God with us. And he's taking on flesh and bones. And now through that very act, John Paul II is saying that theology, which is the study of God, has now entered the body has entered theology. So the more we study him, in one sense, we study God. Okay, and then we will be able to understand who God is and how we relate to him. Okay, so for today's session, we will be looking at who is this person called John Paul II, who actually becomes John Paul II. And we will go through a few technical terms. Now, I'm sorry to say this lecture might sound a little boring, okay? But if we are able to grasp at least the meaning of a few technical terms, then as we go ahead, we will be able to get into the meat of things, the very core essence of stuff. And hopefully from next lecture onwards, I'll be starting on trying to go through the first philosophical book of John Paul II, which is Love and Responsibility. And slowly we will cover that, and maybe hopefully by in the new year, we will actually start with the actual text of the Theology of the Body. Because if you are, I personally believe, if you don't go through the philosophy behind the Theology of the Body, we will not be able to really grasp what John Paul II is is talking about. Okay, so the previous lecture we were primarily talking about Humanae Vitae. The prime one of the main ends or goals or aims of John Paul II was to bring to provide what is known as an adequate anthropology to this thing called the encyclical called Humanae Vitae. Now, Humanae Vitae lays down for some certain set of norms as to how a person is supposed to behave in under certain circumstances. Now, please understand, Pope Paul VI has not just written it for Christians, but he's written to all men of goodwill. So he's written to everyone. So he, in a sense, he's expecting everyone to follow that. Now, if those are the kind of if humanity vitae is a kind of norm that I am supposed to follow, then I also need to understand what kind of person I need to become in order to be able to achieve that goal of being able to apply humanity vitae in my own personal life. So that thing of trying to understand who I am and what I am supposed to be is what is known as establishing an adequate anthropology. Now, I would rather than using the word anthropology, I would rather use behavior. Uh, Although I know it's a little simplistic of to use the word behavior, but and when I'm using the word behavior, I'm not using it in the sense of sociology, which studies collective behavior, but here we are using behavior in the sense of an individual. So anthropology, in a sense, is studying of the individual behavior. So how am I supposed to behave as an individual in order to achieve these norms? Or somebody's raised a question asking, can Hindus listen to this? Of course, anybody can listen to this. There's no restriction uh, because this is the good news. So, all right, okay. So let's continue. So we just briefly we go back. Now we are going to go back into the beginning, so to speak. In the last lecture, we looked at the end. Now we are going back into the beginning, and now we're going to start in a linear fashion. Okay. Although, if you actually study the text of the Theology of the Body, you will find that when John Paul II starts to write, he's not writing in a very linear fashion. He's writing in a, if I can put it this way, he's writing in a very spiral fashion. So he takes an idea, let's say, um, original nakedness, okay, or original innocence. We will come to these terms later. So he will start to develop that in the beginning, and then he goes on to some other idea, and then slowly, as the spiral continues, and then suddenly he'll come back to this idea of original nakedness later, and that will be a development in a little bit deeper way, and developing that idea of original nakedness in a slightly more deeper context. So if you try to learn original nakedness here and then goes on to the other to after maybe few lectures, you will find that he has gone a little more deeper, and the context is slightly changed. So it's not a linear development, it's a spiral one. So sometimes in that sense it becomes a little difficult to read what John Paul II has written in Theology Body. So it's a little dense. Okay. So that out of the way, let's look at who this person is who wrote all this and whom we are going to study. Okay. So this person is, of course, Karol Joseph Wojtyła. He's pronounced as Wojtyła. Okay. And he was born in the Polish town of Wadowice on 18th May 1920. He was the youngest of three children. His older sister Olga had already passed even before he was born. His mother died in 1929. He was only 8 years old. Later, his elder brother, who was 13 years elder to him, Edmund, he also passed away. His father dies in 1941. So from approximately the time of around the age of 20 or 21 or so, uh, all whom he knew, his father, his mother, his brother, his sister, had all passed away. So he was alone in that sense. Okay. And then in early 1940, he comes and meets this one person called Jan Leopold Tyranowski. I hope I'm pronouncing the name right. Jan Leopold Tyranowski. Now, he's a lay person. He's not a religious. He's not a priest. He's a lay person. Later on, he was declared a venerable by Pope Francis in 2017. Now, this man was very influential in John Paul II, that is Karol Wojtyła's life. And he was the person who introduced into the Carmelite spirituality of St. John of the Cross. We will be discussing St. John of the Cross as we go ahead. St. John of the Cross has been a very, very, very influential and a key person in the life of John Paul II. All right. And the spirituality of St. John of the Cross can be termed as what is known as mystical theology. Okay, we will come to these terms later and try and fathom what they mean. Ian also introduced him to the writings of Saint Louis Marie Grignon de Montfort, or popularly known as Louis de Montfort. He's written a fantastic book called True Devotion to Mary. If anyone can read it, it will be fantastic. This leads to to furthering of his more the deeper aspect of Marian devotion. There is why when you see John Paul II, the coat of arms is Totus Tuus. Okay, completely dedicated to Mary. Okay, then. So on All Saints Day, 1st of November 1946, he was ordained a priest. He starts his studies in Rome under Father Reginald Garrigou Lagrange, was considered one of the leading Thomists of the 20th century. Thomism is something which we will discuss later, so that's why I've underlined the word Thomist. Then he earns his doctorate in philosophy with the doctrine of faith in St. John of the Cross. Again, we are coming back to St. John of the Cross. All right, on 19th June 1948. So has got a doctorate in philosophy, and his doctoral thesis, philosophical doctoral thesis, was called the Doctrine of Faith in St. John of the Cross. In 1954, he earns his doctorate in sacred theology. So he's got doctorates in philosophy as well as in theology, sacred theology, evaluating the Catholic ethic based on the phenomenological system of Max Scheler. With his dissertation, re-evaluation of the possibility of founding a Catholic ethic on the ethical system of Max Scheler. Now, this is something where we are going to spend a lot of time on. All right, who's Max Scheler? What is phenomenology? And what are these ethics? All right, we will be spending a little time on this so that we will be able to understand what John Paul II is writing. On 4th July 1958, Pope Pius the 12th appoints him as auxiliary bishop of Krakow in Poland. In 1960, Wojtyła published Love and Responsibility, which is this is a translation of that book, Love and Responsibility. Okay, translated by another Pole. Okay, by Grzegorz Ignatik. I know I have messed up the pronunciation. So anyway, that is Love and Responsibility. This was published in 1960, and that is the he publishes this, and it's basically a traditional defense of the church's traditional teaching on marriage. Now, based on the philosophical standpoint of what is known as personalism, we will come to this later. Okay. From October 1962, Wojtyła takes part in the Second Vatican Council, and his contributions are to the Decree on Religious Freedom, which is known as Dignitatis Humanae, and the Pastoral Constitution of the Church in the World, Gaudium et Spes. Now, Gaudium et Spes is very, very crucial as far as theology of the body is concerned. All right. So again, we will come to all these a little later. On 13th January 1964, Pope Paul VI appoints him as Archbishop of Krakow. Okay, and then in 1978 he was elected Pope, 16th of October, and he takes the name John Paul II. This is just a very brief intro on Karol Wojtyła, who later on becomes John Paul II. Okay, of course there can be lots of things which can be talked about Pope John Paul II, but just a brief intro. Okay, now, like I said, I'll try and make it as simple and as palatable as possible. But there are certain things which will need to be discussed as basic theory in order for us to really go ahead. So, what is natural law? What is teleology? Now, natural law is a philosophical theory that states that humans have certain rights, moral values, and responsibilities that are inherent in human nature. Okay, so natural law would mean that every human being has certain rights, and that rights can be understood based on reasoning. All right, that's what the second line says. Natural law refers to laws of morality ascertainable through human reason. So it gives a lot of emphasis on human reason. Okay, so this is basically natural law. We will come to details about this a little more later. Okay, then we will look at what is one more word called teleology. What is teleology? Teleology is a doctrine that final causes exist. That means what is the reason for the existence of A, B, C, or D item, or what is the reason for the existence of a human being? What is the necessity of the existence of some item? For example, I mean, um, uh, if you take a chair, I am right now sitting on a chair. So what is the end use of a chair? The end use of a chair, in a very simple way, is for someone to sit on. Okay, or let's say you now the chair is definitely a non-living entity, but let's say a part of a human entity, which is obviously a living entity, let's say the eye. What is the reason for the existence of an eye? The reason for the existence of an eye is for the human being to see. Okay, and through seeing, the human being enters into a state of happiness. Okay, so the end result of seeing leads for the human being to become happy. Okay, so why does the eye exist? In order to see. There is a natural reason for the existence of any organ in a human body. Okay, so that natural reason is what is called as the teleological end of that particular organ, let's say. Okay, so the doctrine that final causes exist. It is also the study of the evidences of design or purpose in nature. So why does, let's say, why does an apple tree exist? To bring forth apples. Okay, or why do certain things exist? So there is a reason for the purpose for the existence of these things. So that is what is known as teleology. Natural law is primarily teleological. Okay, let's go ahead. So I know I'm jumping the gun. There are lots which we can talk about natural law and stuff like that. The primary person whose philosophy you can say is Aristotle, who develops what we can probably call natural law. St. Thomas Aquinas takes that natural law and in a sense Christianizes it, if I can put it that way. Okay, so let's very quickly look at what St. Thomas Aquinas speaks about natural law. Of course, these very put in very simple terms. Okay, so now here he is using natural law in the sense of what God when Aristotle talks about natural law, he doesn't, in a sense, bring God into the picture. Okay, there is uh, if I can put it this way, there is a hint of the existence of a creator. Okay, in if you study natural law in Aristotle, but when it comes to Aquinas, when he's taking that aspect of natural law from from Aristotle, he is definitely making it more theological, more Christian. So he is bringing in the person of God into the aspect of natural law, and then he says very clearly, nothing with God is accidental or by chance. Okay, and then he says God is the author of creation. So creation therefore was not caused by chance. Okay, and that creation happened for a reason. So what is the reason for the for creation to take place? And he says the Bible states in Genesis that creation is good. So creation was revealed, or has come into being to reveal God's goodness. Again, like what I discussed last time, here is the aspect of the sacramental view of 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 nature. When you look at the created entities, you are able to see that God is behind all that. Okay, so there is where the sacramental view comes in again. So what is true of the whole of creation is equally true of for what exists within creation. So if it's like, if for the entirety of creation, what is true is also true for the parts in creation. So the sum total of creation, if something is true which holds for the sum total of creation, then it also equally holds to the parts of creation. Okay. So then he goes on. Now this is where teleology comes in. It says everything has a reason for being, and everything that is created reveals God's goodness. Okay, and God has established a certain set of laws to govern this thing that he created, and that is what we call natural law, and natural law regulates everything. So therefore natural law exists in order to reveal something of God's nature. So when we start behaving in what in accordance with natural law, what we are in a sense doing is that we are following what God has designed in the hearts of man. So if you look at what St. Paul writes in the letter to the Romans, he says that the law was given to the Israelites, but the same law, even though it was not revealed to the Gentiles, they are also practicing. That means the law has been written into the hearts of human beings. So that is, in a sense, what we can call as natural law, if I can define it that way. Okay, so this teaching in that sense is for everyone, because it is encompassing every human being. All right. So again, if you go back to the encyclical called Humanae Vitae, Humanae Vitae is primarily talking about why no to birth control is based on natural law, because Pope Paul VI says God did not design a human being in this particular way, so that uh, uh, he did not design a human being in such a way that using contraceptive would become normal or natural. He said that God, that is not the natural order as per which God has created humanity. So if you are going to use a contraceptive, you are going to be violating the laws of God. So that applies not just for us Christians, that applies for every human being. So that's why it is addressed to everyone. Okay. So I hope this hopefully is understood. Okay. Then we are going to go into a little more deeper stuff. We're going to go and try and understand what is this known as phenomenology. So phenomenology is a philosophical approach that concentrates on the study of consciousness and the objects of direct experience. Now, what does that mean? It means that uh, a human being, every human being is conscious of his or her own existence, right? Now, the study of that consciousness and the direct experience is what is phenomenology. Okay. So it goes on to say it is based on the premise that reality consists of objects and events. So events are phenomena and they are perceived or understood in the human consciousness. So how do I perceive things? How do I relate to things? How do I understand things? All this is part of my consciousness. So what is consciousness can be understood as a lived experience of a human person. So how do I encounter people? How do I deal with people? How do I deal with my environment? How do I deal with the created things which God has created? All these things is my own personal unique experience. Now phenomenology goes on and says that it creates conditions for the objective study of topics which are usually related as regarded as subjective. So now an emotion, correct? If I get angry, if I feel sad, if I am frustrated, okay, all these emotions we are definitely they are unique and they are very subjective because they are based on the person being the subject. Now from outside, people are going to look at every human being, every subject, and study those uh, emotions, the decisions that a person makes based on those emotions and feelings in an objective manner. That study is known as phenomenology. So it seeks through systematic reflection to determine the essential properties and structures of experience. Okay, so this is basically what phenomenology is. And a phenomenology, uh, like if I can put it this way, what causes a person to get angry? Now that is a question which is a phenomenological study. Okay, why is it that a person has, let's say, committed suicide? Okay, so the reason behind that is again trying to be having an objective study of a subjective thing, because it is not everyone who goes ahead and commits suicide. It's only a particular people or a particular person in a particular circumstance under particular pressures. So study objectively what caused him to commit suicide under those circumstances, under those situations, and by studying those things, hopefully that study would lead to helping others so that they are not going into the aspect of suicide. So this is just an example of how phenomenology helps. Okay, okay. Let's go into another aspect called personalism. All right. So personalism is in a sense not exactly, but you can probably call it as a subset of phenomenology. Okay, and it's a doctrine emphasizing the significance, the uniqueness, and the inviolability of a human person. It says it's a philosophical movement that stresses the value of persons. It is a system of thought which maintains the primacy of the human person over other created entities on the basis that reality has meaning only through the conscious mind. Now, what does that mean? That means every human person is looking at reality in a different manner. All right. So every human being's perception of reality will be different. Now, no one can say that person A's perception of reality and person B's perception of reality, they are two different things. The perceptions are two different. Okay, but maybe the object of study, let's say if you have you heard about the blind men who are going to study the elephant? Okay, so somebody goes and catches hold of the trunk and feels that it's like a pipe. Somebody goes ahead and holds onto the leg and he says it's like a pillar. So it is the perception of the reality is different, but the object of the study is the same, because it's just the elephant, but the perception becomes different because of the how those people are perceiving the reality. Okay, now the study of that, in a sense, is what is personalism, saying that every perception is equally valuable. All right, you cannot discount somebody else's perception and put it down, saying that, okay, no, that does not make sense. All right, so if I can put it as simple, in a way, as simple a way as possible. So personalism posits ultimate reality and value in personhood. Okay, personalism emphasizes that a person's subjectivity, including the spiritual nature of the human person, is real and exerts a causal force in the world. So the way I perceive things is the way I will act on things, and because I act on things, that will definitely cause some sort of reaction, or some sort of consequence in the world in which I am acting. Okay, so that is what personalism is. Now, let's go ahead to what how John Paul II looks at personalism. Okay, now if I can put it this way, just like natural law was something which was uh, proposed, in a sense, maybe if I can put it that way, by Aristotle, and Saint Thomas Aquinas takes it and makes it Christian. In the same way, uh, personalism was a philosophical posture which was adopted by various people, but the one person that whom John Paul II follows to a great extent is Max Scheler. Okay, and then he is transforming that. I'm not saying that Pope John Paul II is agreed with every aspect of personalism of Max Scheler, but he's adapted that personalism of Max Scheler and he's made it Christian, if I can put it that way. So now let's go on and look at what is Gaudium et Spes. Gaudium et Spes, paragraph 24 and part 3, plays an important role in John Paul II. So when he defines personalism, he appeals to this text. So what is that text? That text is just put up on the screen for you. It starts a little, and then it goes on to say, man, who is defining now. Now, the Gaudium et Spes is the pastoral document of the church, the constitution of the church in the world, the Second Vatican II document, and it goes on to define man. Okay, and it says, who is man? Man is the only creature on earth which God willed for itself, and he's saying, who cannot fully find himself except through a sincere gift of himself. So if you really want to know who you are, unless you give yourself as a sincere gift, only then will you be able to know who you are. In other words, that's what basically it means. So John Paul II's personalism of the sincere gift of self. So when you're saying, how am I supposed to behave? What should be my the way I relate to people? How should I act with people? How should I be able to converse with people? Am I so the basic essence is I should become a gift for them. Okay, I should be able to give myself completely for the sake of the other. So that is what is known as sincere gift of self. Now that is a line which is very, very crucial as we go and study theology of the body. This line is going to be absolutely crucial. Okay, so just try and remember Gaudium et Spes 24:3. Okay, so following that, we will come to what is known as a personalistic norm. Okay, so what does the norm of personalism say? It says that the person is a good towards which the only proper and adequate attitude is love. So there is no other attitude that you can have with a human being. The only attitude that you can have with a human being is love. Okay, So he goes on to say, anyone who treats a person as a means to an end does violence to the very essence of the other. That means means to an end means I am using a person in order to achieve a selfish goal for myself. Now that would be violating the very essence of the other person. Okay, so that is not something which is should be accepted by the person. Okay, so anyone who treats a person as the means to an end does violence to the very essence of the other, to what constitutes the person's natural right. The natural right. So the natural right of a human being is that he cannot be used. He just cannot be used. It's not talking about abuse. It's talking about use. Now, what do I mean? The last line is very important. Just before I get into that, we use objects. A human being is not an object. So a human being cannot be used. Okay, I'll repeat. We use objects. Like right now, I'm using a microphone, a headphone, I'm using Zoom, I'm using all these technological means. I'm using all of these things because these are objects. But I cannot use a human being in the way I'm using, let's say, a mobile phone or a computer or a mouse or a book or a table or a chair or anything of that sort. All right. So I just cannot use a person because the person is not an object. The person is not an object. The person is a subject. Now, if the person is a subject, that means I cannot use the person. So then he goes on to say in this book, Love and Responsibility, on page 12, he's saying there is a huge explanation of this. Okay, so what I'm putting up is in very, very simple words. There are at least 5 to 6 pages he devotes to this just one line. Says that the opposite of love is use. Now, unfortunately, we are living in a very utilitarian society where everything that we talk about is about what use is it for me. Okay, so when I am getting into a relationship with a person, somehow selfishly I am looking at a person and saying, what use is he for me? The moment I start thinking like that, I'm already made that person into an object. Now, that is unfortunately the utilitarian society that we are living in. Most of us, we have a tendency, I'm not trying to put anyone down, but most of us have a tendency when we become selfish, we have a tendency to start to use people in order for us to gain something. And that usually is a very, very selfish manner of living. Okay, I'll stop there. We will go ahead and discuss all these things in much more greater detail. Okay, so we are going to go slowly with trying and understanding these key takeaways. Okay, the first one, man is the only animal who is a person. Now, what do I mean by that? Anima means the spirit. Animal means somebody who is what do you call, animated or led or urged by the spirit. Okay, so there is an instinct in a leopard or a lion or a tiger or a deer. Okay, so when you're hungry, instinctively do what needs to be done. Okay, now in a sense we are also animals in the sense because we are animated by a soul. Okay, but this soul is different from the anima which is there in a sense from of other creatures on the earth. Okay, this soul is directly created by God and is in the created in the image and likeness of God himself. Okay, that is what sets us apart from every other created entity. So man is the only animal who is a person. Okay, because God is a person, man is also a person. Okay, now, and every human person is unique and irreplaceable. Now, this aspect, of course, every human person is unique. Now, somehow, when we again get into this utilitarian ideology or philosophy or way of thinking, we say that okay, somebody goes, somebody else can be replaced. If it's like it's like in a workplace, if there is a person who's a worker, okay, and he is fired for whatever reason, he is fired because that worker can easily be replaced by another worker. But the unfortunate reality is worker A will never be the same as worker B. Okay, because worker A is a subject, is a person, can never be replaced by worker B, who is a different subject, who's a different person. All right. As far as work is concerned, maybe they may be able to do the same work, but the way in which they do the work will be different because both of them are different. So in that sense, even though you may replace a worker, so to speak, okay, you cannot replace the person. It's impossible. Okay, because every human being person is irreplaceable. I'm just taking the example of a factory floor where somehow the tendency is okay, fire this person, we get another person. Okay. As if the person is can be replaced, but you really cannot replace the person. Okay, so because of that, you can never use another human person. You may never use another human person, because if you use in that factory context again, when you're using if your attitude is like that, then you're putting, you're making that person not as, you're not looking at the person as a person, but rather as a object. You're making the person into an object and you're treating him like that, which is violating his natural right to exist as a human being. So again, we come to this, the opposite of love is use. Okay, and we again look at the personalistic norm, the command to love. That is what God says. I am the Lord your God. You shall have no other Lord, gods before me. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength. And you shall love your neighbor as yourself. So this command to love is rooted in the personalistic norm. What is the personalistic norm? You cannot use a person. You can only love a person. And how do you love a person? By making a gift of yourself. So this is the personalistic norm. Again, I'm putting it up there. The person is a good towards which the only proper and adequate attitude is love. Okay. And in order to truly love means to truly make a gift of oneself for the good of the other. So I know this entire session has just been giving theory, but if you understand this theory and keep it in the back of your mind as we slowly go ahead into in detail with studying this, please understand the reason why we are doing it this way is hopefully some of us may be able to, not just attend sessions like this, but maybe able to actually start teaching others these things. Okay, so that's the reason why we're going slowly and why we're going in a little bit of detail. Of course, you can go far more in detail, no doubt about it. But that is the effort anyway. So if anyone has, uh, any objection to it, you're free to let us know. Okay. Uh, that's all I like to say. Okay. So with that, I think I'm just going to close today. So I throw it open to questions or suggestions or discussions or anything that has been talked about today. Okay, and if you have any doubts or clarifications on the previous sessions as well, you can share that and do so as well. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing. So if anyone has any question or any comment, you're uh, free to talk. Or if you want me to repeat, if something was not understood properly, I'll go through it again if that is required.
You can put in the chat also if you have any questions.
Yeah.
I think there's nothing for now. Maybe Jara can
I hope
continue.
it was not all Latin and Greek to everyone.
Yeah.
I know it's a
So
little,
one of my suggestions for people who are new, it will sound a little um, tough in the beginning because that's how TOB is. And however, but as you go through, you'll get you'll understand it and it'll really help you. Okay. Okay, Jara, I can continue. So there are key points or takeaways or anything.
I'm sorry.
You're done for today. Anything more you want to cover?
No, I mean, see, I can talk extempore. That's okay. That is if you want to listen. But somebody saying teleology. Is it a question? Do you want to understand teleology? What is it?
Probably is asking to explain once again.
You want me to explain once again? Okay. Teleology is pretty simple to understand. I mean, I'm sorry if not been able to follow. I'll repeat. Uh, Teleology basically says that anything that is come into existence has a reason for its existence, and also the natural thing to do would be to to understand first the reasons for its existence and to use it accordingly. Okay, so if you let's say, what do I say, if you let's say use um, a chair. Okay, instead of sitting on a chair, you take a chair and you start hammering people's heads with it. I mean, it's just maybe a pretty idiotic example, but still, uh, are you using it in the natural manner in which the chair was supposed was made for? Of course not. The chair was made for people to sit on, right? So if you sit on the chair, that means you are, in a sense, teleologically using the right reason for the chair's existence, and you're using it accordingly. If you're not using it as per that particular reason, then you're violating the reasons for its existence. Okay. Now, this is a very, very crucial thing for us to understand right at the beginning, because when you get into human relationships, when you get into the way we act, okay, there is a reason for uh, there is a reason for a ear. There is a reason for a nose. There is a reason for an eye. Okay. Now, if you understand that reason, then you will be able to act as per that reason. And if you act as per that reason, then you will be able to do justice to it. Otherwise, you will be violating that thing, and that will not be right. So that is basically what teleology is. You know, I hope that is understood. If somebody just put up a chat question, I'll just go to that. Okay, the question is, how will we know what's the reason of our existence and whether we die when our reason of existence is completed on earth? Okay, good question. You are actually preempting what is going to come. Okay, here we are, we were just talking about was trying to understand the philosophy. Okay, the teleology. There is a reason for my existence. Okay, that's all I'm just saying right now. Okay, what is the reason for my existence? As we study the theology of the body, we'll come to know. Okay, the hint has already been given. In fact, the hint is my reason for existence is to make a sincere gift of myself. Okay, so when I make a gift of myself, I'm doing justice to the reason of my existence. Okay, that is what Pope John Paul II says when he talks about personalism. He says that I need to make a sincere gift of myself, and only when I make a sincere gift of myself will I come to know who I am. Okay, that's what he says. That is Gaudium et Spes 24:3. And then when I come to know who I am, then I'll be able to understand really, the more I give myself as a gift, the more I understand who I am, and the more I'll be able to understand uh, God, the more I'll be able to understand and be able to relate to Him. Okay, so when you're talking about you know, in a sense, if I can put it this way, I mean, I know I'm jumping the gun actually. Uh, okay, let's put it this way. In the letter of Paul to the Colossians, he's saying that Jesus is the image of the invisible God. Okay, who is the image? Jesus is the image of the invisible God. Now, uh, what is the reason for my existence? The reason for my existence is to be in union and communion with Him. That is the reason for my existence. Okay, and that means I need to become the image of God on earth. And that can only be achieved when I understand who Christ is for me. And when I come to know that He is the real image of God, okay, that He has come on earth and He is the image of God. And then when I mirror His image, when I become like Him, when I act like Him, when I speak like Him, when I empathize, when I have compassion like Him, then I am being Him. And when I am being Him, I am already entering into the glory that I am supposed to have, okay, already on earth. That is, if you really truly understand the Our Father prayer. What is the Our Father prayer talking about? Let your kingdom come on earth as it is in heaven. So let's understand. Let your kingdom come on earth as it is in heaven. So what, in a sense, what is supposed to happen in the future, the Lord is asking that it may happen in the present. So I become like who I really am. I am, who is the real me? And I'm sorry, I'm jumping the gun. But who is the real me? The real me is the eschaton, the person who is beyond the grave. That is the real me. Now, if I start behaving according to that, then I really would know who I am and I'll be able to reflect Christ on earth. Okay, that in a sense is the essence of my existence. I hope I've answered the question. This is actually something which we would come to a little later.
Thank you.
I think that was a wonderful
Can you
answer,
explain
Cheta.
how
Thank you
being a
very much.
I'm sorry, somebody said something.
I
I couldn't
think
hear.
that was a wonderful answer. Thank you very much, Cheta.
Oh, okay, you're welcome. Okay. Glad to be of some assistance. Okay, can you explain how being a complete gift of self is related to knowing oneself? Oh, okay. Now, again, this is going to be entering into the theology of the body in a much more deeper way. What does it mean to be a gift? I'm just rhetorically asking this question. Would you give a bad gift to anyone? Usually, I mean, you would not, no? Okay, you would not give a bad gift, no? You, because if you respect somebody, you would try to give a good gift. All right. Second thing is, what would be the kind of gift? Of course, a good gift, but also, um, let's say you know the person, okay, to whom you are giving a gift, okay, and that person, let's say, likes, I don't know, let's say, chocolates, just as an example. So would you then go and give him, I mean, you want to give a good gift, so you're saying that, okay, for the sake of that person's health, I will give him bitter gourd. Okay. It might be very good for the person to drink bitter gourd juice, but would that person really like to get a bitter gourd, or in Malayalam what we call pavekya, uh, as a gift? Maybe not. I mean, your intention is maybe trying to make the person healthy, whatever, but maybe the person may not enjoy it. Okay, maybe first if you give a chocolate and then give bitter gourd, maybe that will be more acceptable. Okay, so in a similar way, I am now giving myself as a gift to somebody. Now, first and foremost, when I give myself as a gift to someone, first I need to realize that I am good. Okay, because please understand, a gift has to be good, no? So that means I am good. That means, now, have I created myself? Of course not. That means somebody has created me. Who's the one who created me? God has created me. So that means God who has created me has created me good. Okay. So that means, and that means that God is good. All right. Now the God who is good has created me good and makes me give myself as a good for the sake of the other. Okay. So when I give myself as a good for the sake of the other, I am also seeking the other person's good, because the other person is also created in the image and likeness of God, and that other person is also good. Okay. So when I give myself as a good for the other person, now I'm finding myself that I am good, no? Okay. Right. And then how much can I give myself? In every situation, I may be able to give others as a gift. To what extent am I able to give myself as a gift? And that introspection will tell me what kind of person I am. Am I able to give myself as a gift in the first place? Am I being self-centered? Am I being selfish? Or am I being generous? All these, when I try to do this, then I slowly will recognize within me who I am. And then hopefully, with the grace of God, I will be able to transform myself into the image of God who is Christ himself. And then slowly, then I'll recognize that who am I really? I'm supposed to be Christ himself. So it's only through giving of myself, then I'll be able to come to Christ. Because what does Christ done? Christ has given himself. I hope this answers the question. Somebody said a lot to take in. I know. I've been reading this stuff for a long time. It's a lot to take in. I'm going slow. So I'm just giving you the basic foundational stuff for this. As you slowly start spending more time, uh, I believe it will be really helpful. But it'll take time.
Okay, anybody has any other questions? If nobody has questions, probably if nothing else is there, we can wind up. If you're okay, or if you have some other plans. Okay. You have any other plan, Judah? You're on mute. I cannot hear you.
No, sorry. What were you asking? Sorry.
I'm asking if you have anything, we can like not
No,
what
nothing
are the
more. I
plans?
mean,
Nothing more.
yeah, because if I start speaking, then
No,
I'll get into further stuff. I don't want to do that now.
No. We'll only give little whatever plan for that day only.
Yeah,
Even if you have time, we'll not take another one because it's too much to take already. We'll go slow and steady. People will take the time to understand, contemplate on it and all.
yeah. Okay.
Somebody has okay. Fine. In that way, we will wind up with a short prayer. Okay. In the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Lord, I thank you for this day. Thank you for Dominic and all of us who joined us in this quick short notice. Lord, we understand it's deep theology, and we need the inspiration and the infilling of your Holy Spirit to open our minds and hearts to understand and implement this in our lives. Help us, Lord. I will intercede for us, be with us always. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with you. Blessed are you amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners now and at the hour of our death.
And glory be to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit.
As it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be.
Amen.
Thank you so much. God bless you. Good night. See you next week.
Okay. Good night. God bless.
Bless.
Yeah. Bye bye.